Ralf Rudolf Möller is one of those names that already gives off a sense of greatness even before you hear his full story. And it's not just because of his career. His physical presence alone is enough to leave an impression. Born on January 12, 1959, in Recklinghausen, Germany, he grew up without imagining that one day his name would be tied to bodybuilding, Hollywood, and some of the most unforgettable films ever made. Standing 1.97 meters tall, about 6 feet 6 inches, Ralf Möller became one of the tallest competitors in bodybuilding history. That mix of height and power made him a one-of-a-kind figure on stage, catching the eye of fans and the fitness media. And if you've watched Gladiator, you probably remember exactly how it feels to see him in a scene. Just stepping into frame, he commands respect. At the peak of his physical prime, in 1988, Möller hit an impressive 131 kilograms, roughly 288 pounds, all packed into a body that looked like it had been crafted for epic roles. But what's most interesting is how that imposing build didn't stay confined to the sport. It became a bridge to the movie industry, helping shape a career that blends muscle, skill, and true versatility. Ralph's story starts long before cameras, stages, or film sets. It starts in a swimming pool. By age 7, he was already training seriously in swimming, building discipline, stamina, and strength, 3 pillars that would guide him all his life. Over time, he didn't just master the sport. He became an instructor and swim coach, proving that even as a kid he had a natural ability to lead and a deep dedication to athletic work. But Ralph was never the type to stick to just one path. For 2 years, he swapped the pool for the boxing ring. That shift shows how he was always looking to test his limits and expand his physical abilities. Boxing didn't just improve his conditioning. It sharpened his reflexes, coordination, and confidence, all elements that later played a huge role in the way he carried himself on screen. Life took another leap forward when he joined the West German Army from 1979 to 1981. There, sports stayed a central part of his routine, but in different forms: shot put and discus throw. Those training sessions pushed his physical power even further, but they also reinforced something he'd carry forever: extreme discipline and the ability to face challenges head-on, even under pressure. It was during this phase of his youth that bodybuilding started to spark something new inside him. He was 17 when he began his first workouts, often using improvised equipment in simple gyms filled with rusty bars and uneven weights. Ralph's journey into bodybuilding started almost like a movie scene, with inspiration, and not from just anyone, but from one of the biggest martial arts legends in history, Bruce Lee. For many teens growing up in the 70s, Bruce Lee stood for discipline, focus, and full physical transformation. For Ralph, he was the spark. At the same time, local bodybuilders also caught his attention, showing him that the world of strength and aesthetics was much closer than he thought. That mix of global inspiration and local influence became the foundation of his passion for lifting. The first big sign that Ralph had something special came at the end of his teenage years. In 1978 and 1979, he won the tall class division of the Junior Mr. Germany, impressing everyone with his massive frame and surprising proportions for someone so young and so tall. It felt like the stage had been built for him, or, as many would later say, like he had been built to dominate the stage. His recognition only grew from there. In 1983 and 1984, Ralph won the Mr. Germany title, one of the most important accomplishments of his amateur career. That victory didn't just place him among the best athletes in the country. It opened doors to international competitions. More importantly, it solidified his reputation as a completely different kind of athlete. In a sport that usually favored shorter, more compact physiques, he stood out as an imposing exception. His height quickly became his trademark. American bodybuilding magazines constantly highlighted the almost 2-meter-tall German giant, something rare even among global competitors. That international attention didn't come only from his titles, but from the natural curiosity that his presence inspired. Ralph's competitive phase was filled with achievements that defined his path and secured his place in bodybuilding history. The peak came in 1986, when he won the IFBB Amateur World Championships, the prestigious Mr. Universe title. This win was more than just a trophy. It marked the moment the world realized that this German giant was more than just an unusual athlete. He was a true force in the sport. And as a historic detail, Ralph became the first Mr. Universe to undergo Olympic standard anti-doping testing, adding even more credibility to his victory. At that point, his physique hit its absolute peak in size and muscular density. Ralph stepped on stage weighing around 131 kilograms, about 288 pounds, an impressive number on its own, but even more striking when combined with his 1.97-meter height, roughly 6 feet 6 inches. Keeping a body with those proportions required extreme discipline, a strict diet, and a training routine that felt almost military. But despite what many people think, size alone wasn't his main highlight. What really stood out was that rare combo of towering height and surprisingly good symmetry. On the global stage, he had already been stacking solid results before becoming world champion. At the World Championships, he placed third in 1982 and 1983, and fifth in 1985. These results showed consistency and steady evolution, qualities that every top-level athlete needs. But the moment that would carve his name forever into bodybuilding history came in 1988, when he stepped onto the biggest stage of the sport, the Mr. Olympia. That year, Ralph finished in last place. Strangely enough, that didn't reduce his importance in the lineup. It actually amplified it. He officially became the tallest man ever to compete at the Mr. Olympia, a record that still stands today. That appearance cemented his image as the giant of the competitions, an athlete who challenged the traditional standards of the sport and stood out simply by occupying the stage in a way no one else could. The following year, in 1989, Ralph made a decision that would completely change the direction of his life. He announced his retirement from competitive bodybuilding to chase his Hollywood dreams. It was a bold move, especially for someone who had just solidified his career in the sport. His shift from bodybuilding to acting didn't happen by luck. It came from pure audacity. In 1988, even without speaking English well and without real connections in the industry, he took a chance. He got on a plane to Los Angeles to try life as an actor. But the most impressive part is what he did once he arrived. Instead of waiting for opportunities to magically show up, he literally knocked on the door of legendary producer Menahem Golan, known for launching big action stars. Who would have imagined that this level of boldness would open the very first major door of his acting career? Against every expectation, Golan not only welcomed him, he decided to invest in him. The producer paid for both acting and English classes, believing that the German giant had something unique to offer the world of action films. That vote of confidence was crucial for Ralph to start seeing himself not just as an athlete, but as a performer. His physical presence already spoke for itself. Now he needed to learn how to shape it for the camera. His first roles came quickly. In 1989, Ralph made his American film debut in Cyborg, acting alongside Jean-Claude Van Damme, one of the biggest action stars of that time. That role kicked off a series of opportunities in action productions. 3 years later, in 1992, he appeared in Universal Soldier, expanding his presence in Hollywood and reinforcing his image as an actor with strong screen presence, perfect for intense, powerful characters. But not everything in that phase was glamorous. While still participating in martial arts competitions, something he balanced during his transition to cinema, Ralph suffered a severe neck injury, a traumatic experience that nearly cost him his life. Recovering took months of intense physical therapy. After that, he made a permanent decision. He walked away from any form of combat competition. His priorities had shifted, and they were now on the screen. After those first steps in Hollywood, Ralph began building something even stronger. A consistent career with roles that showcased not just his physical power, but his ability to bring intense, memorable characters to life. That consolidation didn't happen overnight, but each new role opened a bigger door than the last. Slowly, the giant German athlete became a recognizable presence in film. The major breakthrough arrived between 1997 and 1998, when Ralph took on the lead role in the series Conan the Adventurer, playing none other than Conan the Barbarian. The character, previously immortalized by Arnold Schwarzenegger, required not just physical stature, but charisma and dramatic presence, and Ralph threw himself into the challenge. The coolest part? Schwarzenegger himself supported him personally, helping him understand the character's spirit and deal emotionally with the pressure of portraying such an icon. It was the first time Ralph truly led a production, and the impact was immediate. Before that major breakthrough, he had already stacked some solid roles in well-known films. In 1993, he showed up in Best of the Best 2, a classic martial arts movie of its time, where he brought that trademark strength and presence to the screen. Another big moment was his appearance in Batman and Robin, 1997, one of the most talked about films of the era, where Ralph played one of the guards at Arkham Asylum. Even though it was a small role, it placed him inside a massive cinematic universe, and it helped expand his name across the industry. And we can't forget the Viking sagas, 1996, where he played Kjartan, a tough, determined warrior completely aligned with the epic style that would later become second nature to him. That film felt almost like a warm-up for the kind of roles Hollywood would eventually love to cast him in. And that would later peak with Gladiator. When you talk about Ralph, it's impossible not to think of Gladiator. The movie, released in 2000, completely transformed his career and introduced him to the world in a definitive way. His role as Hagen, the Germanic giant and loyal ally of Maximus, played by Russell Crowe, became the most iconic character of his entire journey. Hagen wasn't just physically strong. He had soul, courage, and a deep emotional bond with the protagonist that audiences felt immediately. The impact of Gladiator was massive. The film won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, and became a milestone in epic cinema. The scale of the battles, the intense performances, and the atmospheric world-building created a universe that still fascinates fans today. And in the middle of all that greatness stood Ralph. Tall, imposing, unforgettable. No wonder one of the most searched questions about the movie to this day is, who is the big guy in Gladiator? The answer always leads to the same name, Ralf Möller. What's fascinating is that even after all these years, Ralph's presence in Gladiator remains vivid in people's memories. His striking look, combined with his natural charisma, made Hagen stand out even without being the lead. He became one of those characters who don't appear often but stay with you long after the movie ends. For Ralph, working on Gladiator was almost surreal. Acting alongside names like Russell Crowe, Richard Harris, and Joaquin Phoenix, under the direction of Ridley Scott, was something unimaginable for someone who, just a few years earlier, had been standing on bodybuilding stages. In interviews, he often describes that period as one of the greatest moments of his career, almost like a dream he decided to make real. After the explosive success of Gladiator, Ralf Möller's career took off for good. He was no longer just the giant German guy stealing attention in action movies. He was now a globally recognized actor who had been part of one of the biggest films in modern cinema. With that, his name started circulating strongly in studios of all types, opening doors to roles that explored his physical presence and natural charisma even further. Right after Gladiator, he gained visibility in The Scorpion King, 2002, playing Thorak, a fierce, imposing warrior who fit perfectly into the film's epic tone. In the following years, he appeared in productions like Beerfest, 2006, a comedy that, despite being totally different from his usual epic roles, ended up becoming one of his most beloved performances, and also in action films such as Pathfinder, 2007, plus Postal, Far Cry, and Alone in the Dark 2, part of that action fantasy wave that dominated the 2000s. In 2010, Ralph landed a role in The Tourist, acting alongside Hollywood powerhouses Johnny Depp and Angelina Jolie. Even in smaller roles, his presence still stood out, reinforcing a pattern that followed him throughout his career. Möller didn't need to be the lead to leave a strong impression. He had that kind of presence that fills the screen, even when he barely says a word. Beyond film, Ralph kept working regularly in both German and American TV shows. His versatility took him across different genres, from police dramas to adventure series. And as if all that weren't enough, his career even branched into music. Ralph made special appearances in music videos, including one from Bon Jovi and the iconic Maria, I Like It Loud, by the German group Scooter, a reference fans still bring up today. Away from the screens and far from the big cinematic stages, Ralf Möller's life reveals a more human, intimate side that many people never get to see. In 1989, he married Annette, with whom he built a family and had 2 daughters. For many years, they lived between Germany and the United States, following the ups and downs of Ralph's career, from his very first acting opportunities to his full transition into Hollywood. With time, though, their paths began to go in different directions. Around 2011, the couple decided to separate, officially closing that chapter of their lives. Still, Ralph has always spoken warmly about that period and about raising his daughters, who grew up watching their father juggle training sessions, filming schedules, and public appearances. A detail that surprised many fans only surfaced in 2024. Ralph publicly revealed that he had an 18-year-old son, born in 2005, from a past relationship with a makeup artist he met in Germany. One aspect of Ralph's personal life that always stands out is his long-lasting friendship with Arnold Schwarzenegger. They met back in the 1980s, when Ralph was still taking his first steps in competitive bodybuilding. Their bond grew stronger once he moved to California and started training regularly in Venice at the legendary Gold's Gym, a place where Arnold is practically part of the furniture. The two share workouts, conversations, and countless philanthropic projects, forming one of the strongest partnerships in Ralph's adult life. This closeness didn't just help Ralph transition into Hollywood. It became a constant source of motivation and support. Seeing the two of them together, training and talking like lifelong friends, shows that some connections go far beyond fame or professional success. As his career continued to evolve, Ralph's lifestyle also went through major shifts, especially when it came to health and purpose. Since 2016, he has followed a 90% vegan diet, with only occasional exceptions for fish. This change reflects not only his search for well-being, but also a gesture of environmental awareness and respect for his own body, something he emphasizes often in interviews. For a former bodybuilder who spent years on traditional high-protein diets, this shift shows real courage and a willingness to grow. This new phase inspired him to share his mindset with others. In 2021, he released the book Erstma Machen, a mix of biography, reflections, and motivation, where he talks about challenges, setbacks, comebacks, and the importance of a positive mentality. The following year, in 2022, he published Vegan Gladiators, a vegan recipe book developed with Chef Timo Frank. The project brings simple dishes, practical tips, and small personal stories that show how changing his diet transformed his energy, health, and even his creativity. But Ralph's lifestyle goes way beyond food and training. He has always dedicated part of his life to social action, using his influence to uplift vulnerable communities. His campaign, Stark Typen, created in partnership with the German government, aims to inspire young people from underserved areas to develop self-esteem, discipline, and long-term vision. The project has already reached thousands of teenagers and remains one of the initiatives he is most proud of. In 2008, he took another significant step in this direction by visiting German soldiers stationed in Afghanistan. During the trip, he delivered sports equipment and spoke with the troops about motivation, health, and physical conditioning. The gesture was widely praised and showed that his public presence goes far beyond entertainment. It translates into genuine support for people facing extreme situations. Ralph is also an ambassador for Skate Aid, an organization that builds skate parks and develops social projects for children and teens across the globe. The initiative uses skateboarding as a tool for inclusion, joy, and identity building. Because of his efforts, Ralph received the Order of Merit of North Rhine-Westphalia in 2010, one of the highest honors awarded to citizens who create meaningful social impact. Even decades after stepping away from competitive bodybuilding, Ralph still lives like a true athlete. His training sessions remain intense, consistent, and a core part of his routine. Even in his 60s, he shows a vitality that surprises not only fans, but also fellow gym-goers who stop and stare when they see him training with the same discipline he had back in the 1980s. The core of his training today centers on compound movements, the big lifts that recruit multiple muscle groups and build full-body strength. Squats, deadlifts, and bench presses are non-negotiable pillars in his routine, helping him maintain muscle density, stability, and power. These classic lifts have stayed with him because, as he puts it, they're the exercises that give you the biggest return if your goal is to stay strong and functional as the years go by. Alongside heavy lifting, Ralph balances everything with cardio, something many old-school bodybuilders tended to overlook. Long walks, bike rides, and light conditioning circuits are all part of his weekly plan, keeping his cardiovascular system sharp and helping with muscle recovery. His diet also went through a major transformation. Today, Ralph follows a primarily plant-based approach, focusing on vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, and plant-derived proteins. He believes this shift improved his energy, lightness, and even mental clarity. It's no longer about eating to get bigger, but about eating to live longer and live better. This focus on real health, instead of just appearance, shows how much his mindset has evolved over the years. This combination, structured training plus consistent cardio plus a plant-centered diet, explains why Ralf Möller stays so active and healthy even after decades of demanding so much from his body. Even after all these years in the spotlight, Ralf remains a constant presence in both German and American media. He appears on talk shows, interviews, campaigns, and events, staying close to the public and proving that his charisma is still as strong as the muscles he used to flex on stage. He inspires in different ways, as an athlete, as an actor, and as a living example of discipline and reinvention. Ralph's story is a reminder that greatness doesn't come from a single moment, but from a lifetime of courage, discipline, and bold choices. He left a small town in Germany, shined as an athlete, reinvented himself as an actor, and above all, proved that it's never too late to start again. And now I want to ask you, which part of this story inspired you the most today? If you enjoyed this video and want to see more incredible journeys like the one lived by the giant from Gladiator, go ahead and drop your like. It helps the channel reach even more people. And if you'd like to support our work even further, consider becoming a channel member. Also tell me in the comments, did you already know all these details about Ralf Möller's life? What's your favorite movie of his? Your participation is essential for us to build a strong community that loves great stories. And of course, if you're not subscribed yet, don't wait any longer. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. There's a lot of content on the way, and I'm sure you're going to love it.